the more knowledge you have, the more valuable you become. You can read, you can go to all the courses, you can do all these things, but if you're not implementing, then it's a waste of your time and your energy and your money.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into the show again. Today, I am super stoked. We are interviewing an agent who goes so above and beyond for his clients that we all have a lot that we can learn from him. So Antonio Cousin, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So Antonio and I got connected by a mutual friend who's actually been on the podcast before, Jim, and he said, you were the guy I needed to talk to because not only have you built a business that's repeatable, but you offer a lot of extra value to your clients, your agents, the people around you in your life and your community when it comes to kind of like sound financial advice. Is this something that you've always been doing, or is this new for you? Like, tell us all about it, what you do differently financially wise for your clients. And I want to hear kind of the backstory behind it.
Okay. So when it comes to personal finance, like that's my jam. That's something that I absolutely love. I spend hours each day researching and just studying different topics. And so I guess from a perspective of the real estate transaction, I always come from it as, even though they're buying a home, it's still an investment because you have to have an exit strategy going into the property. You don't know how long, you'll want to know how long you're going to live there, at least have an idea. So that way, think about exit. So let me give you an example. Actually, it'd be easier this way. So like when I bought my first house in 2010, I knew that there was a bunch of land around me. I figured something's probably going to happen to that land that's going to, make my property value go up. It just so happened Warren Buffett bought 420 acres about a year or so after I bought my home, and my property value skyrocketed. So my wife and I, we were able to live there for 6 years and sell our home for 6 figures more than we paid for it and pay no capital gains tax on it.
So is the moral of the story to buy a house where Warren is buying a neighborhood?
I wish it was that easy, man. I would be a wealthy, really wealthy by now. But no, I guess the moral of the story is you always have to have an exit strategy. Like, don't just buy the property just to buy it. Buy it with a goal in mind. Like, what is your goal for this property? Are you going to turn it into a rental property? Are you planning on hoping that it goes up in value so that you can take it and take those proceeds into the next property and so forth? So I always lead from that standpoint when it goes into any transaction with any of my buyer clients.
So what do you do though if your client says like, hey, I just need a place to live and I don't want to rent anymore? Like, how do you get their mind? Because not everybody thinks about real estate from the financial side of it, right? Like they think of it from the stability side of it. Right. And I know you're really good at educating your clients on what the options could be like. So walk me through how you work with those clients initially.
So what I've learned is that when it comes from that standpoint of that client, that particular type of client, all they care about is the payment. So if I can show them on paper how I will either get their payment to be close to what they're paying in rent or less, then they're all for it. It's just a point of like when it comes to realtors, it's on us to educate them. And I feel like that's a problem in our profession. We have a lot of realtors that just get their license, but don't take the time to educate the client. And that's what a client is lacking. That's what I've learned, that the clients just need that education. So that's why I like to teach.
And it's fascinating because I think most, like you just said, like a lot of people get into the industry, they don't have the knowledge to teach clients yet, but they don't have the knowledge for themselves yet. And it takes a lot of practice. Like, we were all new at one point, and I'm sure my first year and your first year, we weren't that educated. We weren't that great. But through hundreds of transactions, thousands of transactions, all of a sudden now we know something and we can share that with other people. But what I think you said, it's really fascinating, and I think from a marketing perspective, kind of where my brain goes, is there's different marketing messages that are going to get through to different types of clients, right? So you mentioned the analogy of like, what's your payment right now for rent? I'm going to show you what you could get for that price. It's fascinating to me because if a client knows what they're paying in rent, they don't necessarily know that they can afford a house. You get them thinking about that and you show them what they could get, what they could have for the same price. All of a sudden, everybody wants to move. So it's really important to market the financial side and not just the pretty house. I think too many realtors focus on marketing the pretty house and the beautiful kitchen, but they don't market the financial side. And I think it's a huge mistake, especially in this market.
I think it's beneficial to do like the actual show case studies. Like here's an example of a client named, Joe, for instance, that I had and showed them the way. This is what their payment was. This is what I was able to do. to get them into this house and save them some funds. Or we could take the house hacking strategy, which I love. I have a lot of clients right now that's doing that because it offers a way to either reduce your payment significantly or altogether. So it's just,
So let's go deeper on that. So, we've all heard of house hacking. Every realtor knows what it is. But how do you have a big audience on social media, you're a big person in your community. How do you get people that weren't thinking about calling you to buy real estate to understand what house hacking is and how it could be attainable for them? Like, walk me through what that messaging and education looks like to get the word out there about that.
Okay, so it comes back to the education. So most people never heard of it, or they've heard of it but don't know how to get into it. So
let's start by just in case there's anyone listening and it's their first day. Tell us the basic definition of house hacking.
Okay, so house hacking is where you buy a property. If it's a single family property, you will buy it and rent out rooms. If it's a multifamily property, you will buy it and rent out units. And the goal here is just to be able to rent out the other rooms or units and significantly lower your monthly housing payment, because taxes and housing is traditionally going to be your biggest expenses each month. But that's the goal. And the reason you want to go the house hacking way is because, as opposed to an investor, when investors are buying a property, they have to put more down. When you're house hacking, you can put anywhere from 0 to 5% down, just depending on the loan product that you qualify for.
What I love about this, it's just an alternative way to get people thinking about real estate. I mean, I think of like my brother, right? Like, he wasn't all that interested in buying a house. It just sounded like a lot of work to him. But when we started talking about house hacking and rental properties, and I said, hey man, you could buy this house, you could live in it, put 3% down, you could live in it for a year or live in it for forever. But if you rent the other rooms out, it covers all your bills. The property's going to grow in value every year. And then at least you have the choice afterwards, right? At least now he has the choice to sell it, take his equity out, buy something better that he actually likes, or he can keep it as rental property and buy another property for himself. I mean, you have so many options, but people just don't know it. So it can be a really good angle to market to the community. So now let's talk about the marketing side. So how do you get that message out there? Once you have all this education and all this knowledge, how do you reach people with it?
So I haven't missed a day on social media since November 28th of 2022. And my goal this year is to not miss any days. So I post every single day. So I'm always trying to strategize around content. I sit down on Sundays and come out with a plan for the week, and I write it out. But if I was doing the house hacking strategy, first off, I would do like maybe what's the definition of it on the first day. Second day, maybe like top myths, three things you didn't know that you could do with house hacking, or pros and cons of house hacking. I would just do that kind of thing just to educate the people. And then probably lastly, I would probably do some kind of case study, or just having, or even, what would be really beneficial if I wasn't the person talking about what happened, but what if I had my client doing it for me?
Yeah.
I think that would be really good, actually. It would, because it's not just me, it's somebody's actually gone through the process and can speak from their firsthand knowledge.
So you just said two things that I think are really impactful that I want to make sure everyone out there heard and digested, because I know we like to go fast. Thing number one was that you have a plan on social media, right? Like, you're not just, most realtors have social media, but they don't have a plan. They're not very regimented with it. You have a Sunday, and Sunday is your content planning day. That's where you're sitting there with your delicious cup of coffee or your favorite beverage. You're coming up with a plan for the type of content and how often and when you're going to post it throughout the week. Then you start creating some stuff. And then throughout the week, Monday, this is what I create to post. It makes it a lot easier because you actually have a strategy happening. And I love that strategies. Without a strategy, social media is just a crapshoot. Now, you can get lucky every now and then. It's like gambling, though. With a strategy, you know that if you put in the effort, you will get results. Real estate has a lot of contracts. I want this podcast to have a social contract as well. Here's what I need from you. If you're listening to the show and you get something valuable out of it, or you hear something that you think, that's awesome, I want you to send me a DM on Instagram, or if you find my email, send it that way. The more feedback that I get helps me to put together better shows and attract better guests.
And I'll tell you this. So I own a brokerage. It's 22 of us. And what I'm learning, or what I'm experiencing with the agents, is they say, well, posting is hard, or it's too, like, it takes too much time. Well, here's what I've done. So like on Mondays, I do Monday motivation. So that's some kind of quote or some kind of motivational thing to get you started during your week, to get you through the week. On Thursdays, I have Thursday's thought. I work out in the morning. So after my workout, I walk through the neighborhood and I just come up with some kind of thought and I record it and I post it. Friday I have Funny Friday. So, and it's some type of funny real estate related post. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because it becomes easier when you have content days. Like you already know what's the strategy around this specific day, so it's easier to develop content for that day. So
That makes
every
perfect sense. And
yeah,
I always tell
totally
people, like,
planned.
come up with like categories, right? Like every day can have a different category.
Yep.
And that way you get there and you know in general what you should be thinking about, like how to get your wheels spinning on that.
Remember we were talking about just being able to educate the client or educate the
Yeah.
consumer. All right, so I always preach this to the agents. Always, the more knowledge you have, the more valuable you become. The more knowledge you have, the more valuable you become. That's why I spend so much time like learning and reading books and attending courses. But I always say, you can read, you can go to all the courses, you can do all these things, but if you're not implementing, then it's a waste of your time and your energy and your money. So you
You
have
have
to
to be a
implement.
master of execution. Like you have to have, you can't just learn. And I think it's a good message for all the new agents out there because I think so many times new agents, like you get into the business and you get overwhelmed by training really quickly.
Yes.
And you only go so long without a paycheck. So it's really important to make sure that you have some sales related and implementation related time allotted in your schedule to get you those opportunities. Because if not, you're learning all the time and there's no opportunity to actually get leads and get sales. I
Yep.
think that's a pitfall that a lot of new agents fall into.
So can I tell you this? If I was a new
Please.
agent, what I would do, I purchased a course on basically it's if you were becoming a loan officer. Because I
Yeah.
feel if I'm in the mindset of a loan officer and I understand the loan products, I don't have to know all the intricacies. But as long as I know the general information, then I can have that conversation with a potential customer, a client. I can have that instead of me always having to say, "Oh, well, let me check with the lender." No, I don't need to do that because I understand this. So I feel like if I was new and I was doing it all over from scratch, that would be something I would invest in, trying to get that knowledge because then you come off more confident in the discussions with the clients, and it's
Well, I think
easier.
confidence, coming off confidence is key, right? Like your customers chose you to represent them in a multiple hundreds of thousands of dollar transaction, and they
Yes.
need to feel confident throughout the way. You can't say, "Oh, I'm not sure." The
Yep.
answer is, "Hey, I have an answer for that. I'll have my answer to you by 2 p.m. or something like that." You
Yep.
need to exude confidence at all times, and that's really the best way to get referrals. But Antonio, I always like to cover people's numbers a little bit because it gives the listeners a reason to listen to you and a reason to believe you. So you've been in the business what since 2010 or
10.
so?
Yeah, I got my license in
2010.
2010.
I thought when we talked earlier, it was fascinating. You started growing your business as a side hustle, and then it
Mhm.
became your main hustle. Let's
Yep.
talk about where you came from and where you are today, because your growth trajectory. I know you had 1 year where you made some pivotal changes and you 10x your income,
Yep.
and that I think is what a lot of people out there listening to this are hoping to do soon.
Okay. So let's go back to 2010. I used to live in Dallas, Texas. So I moved there after college for a job. The job was with the federal government as a bank examiner. So that was in 2007. I moved to Dallas. So in 2010, I got engaged. And I know, just being into personal finance, I know that people go into debt over a wedding. And I wasn't trying to do that. But at the
No
same
way.
time, I
You
was
still
trying
have
to
to
have a great wedding.
give your partner everything they wanted.
Exactly. But I definitely wanted a good wedding as well. I wasn't trying to go cheap. So what I did was I got my real estate license, man. My mentor at the time, she was an agent. And my wife used to always tell me that maybe that should be something I should consider because I had the personality for it. And I had a big network of friends. So I got my license. And from 2010 to 2019, I never made more than 44,000. And it was because I just treated it as a side hustle, like just something that keep the bills, just something extra. I was working as a bank examiner making $120,000 for the federal government. So I didn't really need the real estate income, if that makes sense. But
It
something
does, and
changed.
I want to pause you right there really quick, but keep your train of thought. This, by the way, is where 99% of realtors are, right? Like when I look at the NAR, the National Association of Realtor data, the majority of agents out there are doing 1 to 5 deals a year. It is not a lot. Most people are treating this as a side hustle, and I'm not chastising them. A lot of our listeners may be doing that, but this is an opportunity for those people listening who do not treat this as a side hustle, who treat this as a full-time professional job, because when you're going into a listing presentation or when you're working with buyers who are thinking about using another agent, you can ask them this question. is the other agent you're thinking about working with treating this as their career or a side hustle to make some extra money? They can be good either way, but I'm full-time. I'm in this for you. And when you explain it like that to a customer, why would they not go with you? So I'm going to keep going. I just had to elaborate on that for a second, Antonio.
So yeah, so I just did it as a side hustle just to make some extra money, right? But what I started enjoying is actually my clients, their faces or their emotions at the closing table. Like that started to wear on me, where I felt like I had a bigger calling than the bank examiner job. I didn't really get any fulfillment, or I felt like I wasn't really adding value at the bank examiner job. And so that kind of shifted me more toward the real estate sales career. That started making me think about it as maybe I should do this for a career. Maybe I could do this as a career. So in November of 2019, prior to that, I had never made more than $44,000. But in November of 2019, I went ahead and hired a coach, which we know, Jim. And I went ahead and started treating it like as a business. I got a CRM. Prior to that, I didn't even have a CRM, man. I used to write things down on sticky notes and lose them. So I didn't really treat it.
I love that you say this, because every single out of the 3,500 realtor meetings I've done, point number one is always make a list of your customers, i.e. a CRM, and then call them and talk to them. So I love the fact that when you started doing that, your income went up. So keep going. Okay. I had to pat myself on the back there.
So I decided in November of 2019 that I was going to take it serious. And you know what happened in 2020? The market was booming. So in 2020, keep in mind, I was running I was running this job full-time as a bank examiner. I was selling real estate, and I also opened a brokerage in July of 2020. So in 2020, I sold 44 homes and brought in $235,000. That's to me, that's after broker splits and everything with my previous broker. So I've never went back ever since then, man. It's been an upward trajectory ever since then. But yeah, it went from 44,000 to 235,000 and hadn't gone back since. It's because I made the decision to treat it as a business. I hired a coach and I got a CRM, and I started working the CRM.
Well, I think that's a really great critical question that everyone out there can ask themselves. Like, how does your real estate career resemble a business, or does it resemble you're kind of doing your own thing and working when it's convenient for you? Like, if you're treating it like a side hustle, it's going to be side hustle money.
Yep.
If you start treating it like a business, you're looking at your numbers. You have a plan every day. You are your own, a-hole boss that tells you what you need to do and where you need to be.
Yep.
That's where you start to see some real growth, because there's some consistency there. So, Antonio, 2022, how did that look for you in the brokerage? Like, how many deals did you guys do? What was the success like in 22, a short 2 years after you went full time?
So let me back up real quick to 2021. So in 2021, I decided that the full-time job was stunting my growth in real estate. So I made the decision that by the end of the year, I was going to quit that full-time job. And that was a scary thing to do. If 100% commission, you got to pay for your own health insurance. When I had this great government job with government benefits, making 6 figures working from home, it was tough. But I made the decision, and on December 17, 2021, I went ahead and quit, man. It has been great ever since. The best decision I could have did, honestly. But 2021, I sold 44 homes for about 11 million. 2022, it went down to 33 homes for a little bit over 10 million. But the average sales price went up. So that's all I care about. I don't need to sell a crazy amount of homes. As long as I focus on the sales price, my income goals will be okay. That's how I look at it.
To sell $10 million as a solo agent. I mean, I think that's the big thing to realize too. Like, we talk to people on the show who sold 500 homes with a team of 30 people. Same thing as doing 10 homes by yourself. You're representing all of your clients in your database. When you're doing $10 million in sales, it's 44 people a year. Your database is growing at a pretty good rate, and it sets you up for 5 years from now. Now, all of a sudden, you have 500 people in that database you can call on, that you can work with again, they can refer you. So, I mean, I cannot wait to see what kind of numbers you're throwing up in 3 years when that database gets to that level.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Sky's the limit. I know I haven't even scratched my potential, man, because I have so many things going on at once right now that if I can just focus on real estate sales, the sky's the limit. Now, I know this.
The Neighborhood Realtor Podcast is proudly made possible by the support of our sponsors, Treadstone Funding and Neighborhood Loans, two two amazing Midwest mortgage companies that now have offices all around the country. If you're a realtor and you'd like to learn more about connecting with one of our lenders, DM me at mattmuska88 and I'll connect you with someone in your market. If you're a lender and you want to join the right mortgage company, DM me and I'll connect you as well. So, I know you told me before, at this point, you have 400 people in your database. And I know that they're not all randomly calling you just because you're a great guy and you're super good looking, obviously. What are you doing? What actions are you putting out there to get these people to call you and work with you?
So every month I send out a newsletter, a monthly newsletter on the first of the month. And this is something that I put together myself. It's usually, so my philosophy is I don't like to always bother people with real estate related emails because they'll unsubscribe and then it will be treated as just noise. So in my newsletters, I try to come from the personal finance aspect. Like I talk about, like last month, I believe it was wills and trust. The month before that, like inflation and how it's impacting the economy. Traditional IRAs versus Roth IRAs, things like that, like things that I'm familiar with. I talk about that in my newsletters, and I have a really good open rate too. It's anywhere from 65 to 70% when I know the industry average is way less than that.
I mean, a lot of realtors are lucky to get 13%. And,
yeah.
I mean, I think another big point for everyone out there, you're creating the content for your newsletter yourself.
Yep.
And so everyone out there probably heard you say newsletter and they groaned a little bit. But I think like a huge piece is like, we talk a lot about on this show about like sending out quality content. It is okay to do a mass email like a newsletter as long as you're putting the content together yourself and it's something that you believe in. Now, Antonio's area of expertise is personal finance, which really has a great tie into real estate. But other people have areas of expertise like landscaping. It might be staging, interior design. And I have agents that focus on those things in their newsletter, and they also get a high open rate. The key is to not be generic, right? If you're getting your newsletter content from your corporate company, it's going to be generic for everybody and specific to nobody. So I'm sure there's a lot of great, newsletters that your companies are giving you out there, but make sure you're inserting some really great original content that ties to your community at the beginning in your first couple of emails. Otherwise, people just won't listen.
Yep. And so what I've started doing with the monthly email newsletters is if we do, so I have a podcast as well, just released a couple weeks ago, actually. It's called the Financial Flows Podcast. So what I'm starting to do is
today, guys, the Financial Flows Podcast.
The Financial Flows Podcast is me and another guy. He used to play professional football for the Saints, and then he worked in corporate America as well as like a executive for Target. And now he's entrepreneurship life just like me. So we have that podcast, and what I'm doing is I'm starting to, like, say for instance, if my topic for the month is this coming up for next month is going to be side hustles in a recession. That's going to be my main topic for the newsletter. Well, we just recorded an episode on that. So I'm going to tie in the newsletter with the podcast. It's synergy. So it only makes sense.
I love it. Well, that's like reusing content. You make one thing, and you can use it as an email. You can do it on social media. You can do quite a bit of stuff with it. So I know you do some pretty cool stuff with Facebook also. So tell everyone about the closed group that you moderate.
Yeah. So every single client that I've ever closed with, I put them in a Facebook group if they're on Facebook. And in that Facebook group, what I do is I try to get some engagement where I'll do like quarterly giveaways, like a Ring doorbell, a Nest thermostat, Amazon gift cards, things like that. And in order to be included in the drawing, I will ask them to like share my listing or send me a referral or participate in this poll. With my brokerage, Service First Real Estate, every single quarter, we give away 10% of whatever commissions earned to the brokerage. We give away 10% to a local nonprofit. So I'll get my group to vote, like, okay, we have these three choices for the giveaway this quarter. Who would you want to vote for? Or I'll ask them for ideas, like, if you had a financial blessing to be able to give to someone, who would you give it to and why? Like, what nonprofit and why? So that way it's getting engagement, and my group, they feel like invested in my success because they want to see, the financial blessing given to these nonprofits as well. So I find that it's really beneficial as far as referrals and stuff because they see me doing things in the community. They want to help me and the brokerage.
Well, I think it's really big too because you're giving people, between the giveaways and kind of asking them for their opinions, what charities they want to support, you're giving them a reason to come back and engage.
Yep.
It's all about giving people a reason to do something, giving them a little bit of that reinforcement, right?
Yep.
And I think it's important because then when you have other messages to post, you can put it in there, but it performs much better than a Facebook page. On a group, everybody has the opportunity to see it for free. on a Facebook page, your business page, people are only going to see it unless you pay or it's like super viral content.
Yep.
So the idea of creating a closed group for your clients, for the community, I think is absolutely huge. So let's just kind of, I want to end by talking a little bit more on what you're doing for your past clients and like what kind of events do you do? What are you doing that's a little bit outside of the box?
So we actually just did our first event for Christmas, man. I haven't really been big on those, but I know I need to be. We did a client appreciation party / Christmas party where the entire brokerage could invite whoever they want. Any past clients, well, I say past with quotes because they're never past clients, but any clients that they've done business with or that they're currently doing business with, where you got to invite them to the party. It was open bar, DJ, free food, free drink. It was just a great time. And it was a lot of pictures being taken, a lot of sharing on the social media. So it helped promote the brand and the brokerage as well as the individual agent because they got to experience this, great event for nothing. They didn't have to pay anything, obviously. But so that's one thing I'm probably going to do every single year around, holiday season. But I want to do this upcoming summer. I want to plan like, we're in Southeast Louisiana and crawfish are big here. So I want to do like a crawfish boil / barbecue for all of my current and past clients. So that's probably something to do.
Well, it's cool because it's original, right? Like you're doing something that your community in particular is into, and they're going to come to it because it's really cool. Versus like you look at what every other realtor is doing, you want to stay away from those things. So be original, but do things that you know are going to work for your community. And Antonio, if people listening have a client who are moving to the Louisiana area near Baton Rouge, like how can they get a hold of you? And do you take referrals? Dumb question.
I absolutely take referrals. And I'm in the Baton Rouge and the New Orleans market. We operate both. They're an hour drive between the two, but I'm from New Orleans. So most of my business is actually still in New Orleans. But they can reach out to me. Instagram is my platform of choice. It's Cousin Sales LA. LA is in Louisiana. Cousin Sales LA is my Instagram handle. Or they can email me, Antonio@servicefirstre.com. But before we go, Matt, I just want to mention something. So we just talked about the client appreciation parties and things like that. I want to say this, that when it comes to, as a real estate professional, what you should be doing is having some type of marketing budget. And I'm big on Profit First. That's a book that every single entrepreneur should read. It talks about how to divvy up your income. So that it's like a cash flow management book, actually. But in using that framework, I put aside every single commission check that I earn. I put aside 10% to my marketing budget. And then I use that money to be able to give back to my clients, the people that already know, like, and trust me. I don't spend money on cold leads and trying to get business from new people. I just focus on loving on my clients. And that's how I get a lot of referral business and a lot of business from my sphere. That's all my business, honestly.
Well, it's great too, because you figured out what works for you, right? Like, that when you love on the people that you're already working with, you don't need to buy those leads as long as you're doing the right things with your people, communicating to them, staying on top of them, and providing that sound financial advice that brands use the expert.
Yep.
Antonio, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I know you have a book coming out soon, 55 Ways to Sell Your House Without a Realtor. Tell us about that really quick before we let you go, because I think there's a lot of people that are going to be interested to hear why you would write a book about not using a realtor. But I think it'll make sense once you explain it.
So I actually finished it yesterday, man. I went off to format. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been spending the last 3 months on it, actually. But my goal with the book is like a lead capture mechanism. What I plan on doing is getting them printed and mailing them to for sale by owners and expired listings. And my goal and my intent is they're going to go through it and be like, dang, this is way too much stuff. I'm just going to hire him. At least that's my intent. I'm also going to sell it to people that's not in my market, that sellers or potential sellers that operate in a different market from mine. But that's actually my second book. This is my first one right here. I'm out escaping the rat race, one income stream at a time. I'm big on investing, man. Like, you have to invest if you want to, escape the rat race and achieve financial freedom. This is the book for you. And you can get it on gotincomestreams.com.
GotIncomeStreams.com, everyone, to get Antonio's book. Antonio, thank you so much for dropping some knowledge with us today. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you for the invite.